Well, I was a bit surprised that God made me an economist. After all, I was very anti-business and profit-making and entrepreneurship in that sense. And there I am, the theoretician, the academic. Unlikely too, as I was so incredibly poor at English, from the point of view of spelling and reading anyway. Very good at sentence construction and, in all humility I say, brilliant when it came to argument and discussion and analysis. But that was much to do with Mum's upbringing. Very bright she was. But to the point. Malthus was right. If you have an island, the population expands to the limit of the food supply, and then there's poverty, famine, and starvation, and the population trundles on at this borderline of poverty, of subsistence, and below subsistence at times, accordingly. So too then with the planet. We may overcome it in various sort of temporary ways by our technology and expansion into lands that have not previously been used and so on. But basically, we're on a planet of limited resources within any specific time frame. Hence, deep state argues we must control the population. Their reason for doing it might be selfish, of course. They assume they're going to be in the bit that's saved, not the bit that's constantly being dispensed with. We find, in fact, of course, that small elites are not unified. They always splinter, even, son against father and so on. And it's not usually the happy outcome that one plans. As such is the thesis of the fall of man, that he's inherently selfish. So selfishness has been seen as a fault, an evil, but it's not. It gives priority to the self, else in our incompetence we would have simply destroyed ourselves rather more quickly. But since we have a priority of putting ourselves first, we try to avoid death at all costs, and this has a sort of primitive survival, perhaps even evolutionary quality to it. What we tend to do and settle for is a narrow view of who we're looking after. We're looking after our family, we're looking after our people, our culture, our church, our country, and let the rest of the world get on with it. Which actually turns out to mean exploiting the rest of the world and nature until that gets used up as well, and we're in crisis. Then we decide to shed some of our own, namely our own poor, not too consciously, but not too unconscious of such happening either. So Jesus, comes up with a comment, the poor always you have with you, and you can help them anytime you wish, but you should have your priorities right. Seek first the kingdom of heaven. And I think that's getting close to it anyway, the understanding from the Jesus point of view. My view is we're not here to put the planet right. The planet's doing very well from God's point of view. It's a mix of good and evil that we might learn thereby. Not that we might come along and completely reorganize the classroom so that it looks more like heaven. This sounds very unprogressive and callous and all the rest of it. And my defense is, well, if we are at the same time pursuing a rather non-materialistic approach to living, perhaps we're not too demanding on the rest of the world's resources. I mean, the obvious, if we removed greed, the planet could supply a better standard of living to the rest of its population, at least until that population expanded, as per Malthus, etc. We might manage accelerating rate of technology, but at present that seems to exclude mankind rather than cater for his needs, probably because the needs of mankind aren't uppermost in the minds of the decision makers of our societies. They may gain such a surplus from their technological gain, of course, that they can appear very benevolent and have an ever-expanding population as well, or simply have population control rather than population trimming, annihilation and so on. Well, we can't say what the outcome will be too well, of course, because we're in such an uncertainty, especially when it comes to predicting technological changes. All we do suspect is that, assuming we survive as a people, there seems to be no limit to what the technological achievements could be. Well, other than our ability to survive them, of course. And the technology may so change us and our environment and what we do that the uncertainty built into such finds we've destroyed ourselves. And the conclusion is, well, we just don't know. This is not an unusual situation for us to be in. We've been in uncertainty since the beginning of our consciousness, as far as we know. What we have found over this time is that there are certain ways of being happier in such circumstances than others, and we are at pains to try and find out what they are. And this is the quest of both science, philosophy, mankind's intention generally, and ideally the purpose of his religious theorizing and so forth. So we look around and we say, well, what are the most effective principles of living? What are they? Are they there to be discovered? And to what extent do they help? And that's ever seems to have been the situation that we are in. And we try to do it as best we can. Thank you, Dan.